My name is Renee Mark Barrow, and I wanted to present my solo research presentation on music performances in virtual reality. The primary goal of my research is to understand what makes an effective performance in the virtual reality environment and establish guidelines for creating successful VR music performances. My secondary goal is to use the evaluation as a springboard to generate questions for further study. In today's agenda, I will first present important concepts within the field of virtual reality and immersive technology research. I will then explain my research method, describe my initial experience of my chosen performance, and then based on the feedback from my test subjects, I will compare this with a second performance before making my final conclusions. There are a number of important concepts that are relevant to virtual reality and immersive technology. My four main sources were Sue and Profit's 2018 journal article on the state of immersive technology research, a literature analysis, Mutterlein's 2019 conference presentation on the 3 pillars of virtual reality, investigating the roles of immersion, presence, and interactivity, Berkman and Akan's 2019 Presence and Immersion in Virtual Reality entry in Lee's Encyclopedia of Computer Graphics and Games, and Servat et al.'s 2020 journal article on Virtual Reality Experience, Immersion, Sense of Presence, and Cybersickness. Immersive technology is defined as a number of different technologies whose aim is to blur the boundary between the physical and virtual worlds, enabling users to experience a sense of immersion and realism within virtual experiences, while virtual reality is defined as the sum of the hardware and software systems that seek to perfect an all-inclusive, immersive sensory illusion of being present in another environment. These different technologies can be placed on a reality-virtuality continuum and includes mixed reality, augmented reality, and virtual reality, which on the continuum is known as augmented virtuality. Research methods highly favor experimentation, followed by surveys and sometimes a combination of both with an interview. There are 4 classifications of sensory stimuli that contribute to the immersive experience: the visual display, the auditory modality, for example, speakers versus headphones, the haptic interface, such as a glove or clothing, that provides users with a means to interact physically with virtual objects, and movement tracking. Presence is defined as a feeling of being in a certain place while being physically situated in another, as one's sense of being in the virtual world, and a subjective illusion. This is subcategorized as physical presence, where virtual objects are experienced as physical objects, spatial presence, where one feels located in the space, social presence, which is a sense of being with another person, and temporal presence, which is a sense of being in the time of the perceived content. Researchers are divided over the definition of immersion. Some prefer a psychological definition, while others prefer a technological definition. Since there is currently no agreed definition, Sue and Profit point out the importance of future research to elaborate on how the concepts of immersion, flow, and presence relate. Those who use the psychological definition of immersion define it as being caught up in and absorbed by the virtual world, while flow is defined as a state of optimal experience where one is completely absorbed and immersed in an activity. Since the definitions of flow and psychological immersion are similar, Mutterlein chooses to use flow as an alternative word for psychological immersion, while Berkman and Akan refine the definition as immersion is a user's engagement with a virtual reality system that results with being in a flow state. Therefore, immersion either is or leads to a state of flow. Recent studies in virtual reality adopt a more technological definition of immersion as a quality of the system's technology, an objective measure of the extent to which the system presents a vivid virtual environment while shutting out physical reality, and immersion reflects the extent to which computers allow engagement of the users to better represent reality, involving users' panoramic view, resolution, richness, information about the content, and shutting out of other physical realities present in the environment. I wanted to conduct a critical evaluation of a virtual reality-based performance of the song Speechless by the artist Prince Board and his collaborative project Parker Lane. What drew me to this particular performance is the groundbreaking combination of 360-degree 8K resolution virtual reality video with 3D spatial audio. Since there are very few examples of this combination of immersive technologies, I felt that it was a unique performance that one could only experience effectively with the use of a head-mounted display or HMD. The HMD that I used to experience the performance was the Oculus Quest 2, which is regarded as the best value standalone HMD that is currently commercially available. It allows 6 degrees of freedom, so if one had a large enough space, one could walk around. It also has built-in speakers capable of playing 3D audio, and although the controllers do have haptic capabilities, I didn't find these to be necessary. In addition to my own experience, I also conducted an experiment and interview on 5 other test subjects. 2 females, aged 33 and 81, and 3 males, aged 34, 51, and 80. Out of the 5 subjects, only one was an experienced musician. All I asked them to do was tell me their thoughts and feelings of the VR experience, and ask them to comment on the visuals, music, and audio. In order to provide some comparative feedback, after viewing the Parker Lane Speechless video, I also asked them to watch a performance of Hello Morning by the virtual VTuber Kizuna Ai.
Come on, people, snap with us. Here you go. You know we can see you too, so snap.
Parker Lane's 360 experience has us being placed within what seems to be some type of glassed-off practice studio within a warehouse, where people seem to be walking in and out, or working at their computers. The viewer is positioned in the center of a circle of musicians, with a male lead singer playing the trumpet and keyboard in front of us, the female backing vocalist sitting on our right-hand side, the bassist behind us, and the drummer sitting on our left. Meanwhile, there is also a photographer standing up taking photos, and a videographer sitting behind us on the floor controlling the live stream. Upon entering the experience, one feels like a disembodied soul who has floated down to earth to join the band's practice session. It doesn't feel like a polished performance due to the lead singer's instruction to the band to speed up in the middle of the song, as well as the unbalanced volume of the instruments. The bass guitar is very quiet, while the backing vocalist is extremely loud. After the lead singer starts snapping his fingers, he looks at us briefly and says, "You know we can see you too, so snap." However, throughout the rest of the performance, there is little eye contact from either the lead singer or the rest of the band, so one feels more like an invisible observer. Personally, I enjoyed the feeling of being invisible and being able to focus on each musician for a long period of time without experiencing the awkwardness one would have if one was caught staring at another person. What I find to be especially effective was the 3D audio that followed the position of the musicians. When I focused on the drummer, the sound of the drums became centered in my headset, while the sound of the singers and bassists were positioned behind me and to my left and right. As everything within a 360-degree sphere was recorded, this led me to be more interested in studying all the background details that would have normally been hidden or things I might have usually ignored. For example, I was able to observe the videographer sending messages on his laptop, see the reflection of the drummer on the computer screen behind the backing vocalist, and watch what the people outside the studio were doing. The combination of 360 video, 3D audio, and the mundane background details made me feel the realism of the experience, with a good degree of spatial and temporal presence. I felt like I was there in the studio with them, but more as an invisible voyeur. The lack of social presence didn't bother me, as it freed me to do what I wanted in front of them without them reacting. As for my test subject feedback of Speechless, 3 out of 5 subjects said that the experience felt very realistic. One said it was realistic but not enjoyable, and one lost his balance and felt like he was falling. Although a negative experience, it can also indicate a sense of spatial presence. Therefore, high spatial presence was experienced by everyone. 3 out of 5 subjects said it didn't feel like a performance or a show, but rather just a rehearsal or jamming session. This was due to the setting being messy, with people sitting around, as well as the actions of the band members who acted too casually for it to be a proper performance. 2 out of 5 subjects said they didn't enjoy it. 1 subject enjoyed it but didn't feel involved. The main reason was a lack of social presence due to a lack of eye contact and acknowledgement by the band. 2 out of 5 subjects commented on the 3D audio and how the sound matched the visuals well. 1 subject liked the singing, while 1 commented that the music production wasn't good. The 3D audio placement of the instruments is very effective and adds to the realism, but the mixing and production quality of the music is poor in comparison to what is commercially available from them. Perhaps if there was a sound engineer employed, the sound would have been much better. 2 out of 5 subjects said they would prefer to be in a different location rather than the center of the group. It was uncomfortable to keep turning one's head, and it would have been preferable to see the whole band performing at the same time. In retrospect, it's true that sitting in the middle of a circle of musicians is very unnatural and would never actually happen in physical reality. Perhaps a better setting would have had the band in a semicircular arrangement in front of the viewer, where the viewer would only need to move their heads to the left or right slightly to see all the musicians. 1 subject said things looked far away. I tried to understand where this experience could come from, and upon experiencing the Speechless song again, I noticed a reflective sphere when I looked directly downwards. This reflects everything in the room, but everything looks far away and much smaller. 1 subject said that people looked a bit bigger than normal. Upon comparison with another video, I realized that this could be because the video was monoscopic rather than stereoscopic. Sight is naturally stereoscopic, which means it uses 2 points of view to create a sense of depth. Without a sense of depth, a monoscopic video could make the image look larger than normal. In summary, while the experience was realistic and the 3D audio was effective, the experience was let down by the lack of eye contact and interaction. They didn't feel like it was a good performance. Even though the singing and instrument playing was good, the music was imbalanced and not produced well. Putting the viewer in the center of the band is not very comfortable. I then asked the test subjects to watch Kizuna Ai's performance of Hello Morning and make some comments about it. This performance of Hello Morning has Kizuna Ai start by standing in front of us, singing to us in a white virtual world. She then does a backflip, and the world dissolves into blocks floating in dark space. These blocks form a spiraling pathway into the distance, where Kizuna leads us on a new journey. We then follow her through a series of portals going through multiple worlds, from an otherworldly terrain to a desert-like canyon with hot air balloons surrounding us, through a futuristic floating space station, before we end in a field of flowers and trees surrounded by snow-capped mountains. All the while, Kizuna floats in front of us, leading us on. As for the test subject feedback of Hello Morning, 4 out of 5 subjects felt that the experience was very realistic, while 1 subject said that the cartoons are unrealistic. What is interesting is that the same subject also said that the flowers and plants was realistic and that they felt a sense of closeness with Kizuna, who sometimes got too close to her. This indicates that while the experience itself may have been realistic, the subject content and nature as an animation is unrealistic due to beliefs of what is and is not possible in physical reality. Therefore, all subjects felt a high sense of spatial presence, even if 1 said it wasn't realistic. 4 out of 5 subjects said they enjoyed the experience. This seems to be a combination of the quality of the audio, the quality of the animations, the interaction with Kizuna, as well as the background and ambience. Hello Morning is a stereoscopic video, which creates a sense of depth and a 3-dimensional experience. The audio sounds like it is in stereo, as it stays in place when you turn your head. It would be interesting if the producers had created a 3D audio version of this experience as well. 4 out of 5 subjects said they experienced a sense of closeness and connection with the singer. Not only is there eye contact, but Kizuna makes you feel like you're the center of attention. Even if she flies off for a while, she will always come back, turn her head towards you, or hold out her hand towards you. In terms of performance, she is more interactive and makes you feel more involved than the Parker Lane video. 1 subject said she felt like this is how Lady Gaga or Katy Perry would perform if they were animated characters. Therefore, the sense of social presence is high. 1 subject noted that the background animation could feel real in the future, but not now. What she meant by that was because she hadn't seen any floating space stations in the physical world, that meant it was not real. However, if in the future it becomes a physical reality, then it would feel real. So that subject had a lower sense of temporal presence than the rest. Based on the general answer from this subject, it shows that there are some people who regard all animations as being for children and will never watch fantasy or science fiction because it's not relatable to their lives. Based on the test subject feedback, it became clear that regardless of age or gender, Kizuna Ai's performance of Hello Morning was much more positive and had a much larger impact than the Parker Lane speechless performance. In summary, most found this experience much more enjoyable and effective than this speechless video. In conclusion, the research undertaken proved useful and highlighted the importance of a number of factors that contribute to the potential success of a VR performance. The interactivity, movement, and eye contact of the performer helps to create a sense of social presence and connection with the audience, which is important in any performance, regardless of being an animation or live action production. Creating a professionally staged setting makes a difference to audience reception. Whether physical or virtual, it needs to look like a performance rather than a practice session. The stereoscopic video format creates a 3D sense of depth and was more immersive than the monoscopic video format. A balanced and well-mixed audio production is essential. Even if 3D audio is effective, if the mixing is poor, the performance will not be effective. It would be interesting to create a well-mixed 3D audio track with a 3D visual performance. Having the visuals and sound match our natural vision and hearing would be more effective. Rather than having people arbitrarily turning their heads around to listen, most of the visuals should remain in front and to the sides of the viewer, while the audio can take place behind us as well. This would match our natural expectations. Although there was a good selection of ages and both genders were represented, a larger selection of subjects may lead to more refined conclusions. Further implications. While this research has succeeded in evaluating what an effective performance would be within the medium of virtual reality, it also generated a number of questions related to the nature of virtual reality as well as identity. The majority of researchers in this field usually focus on the technical abilities of or psychological impact of virtual reality. However, the questions that are missing are those that inquire into the nature of reality itself. What is reality? And is reality itself objective or subjective? Is reality predefined, or do we create our own realities? Is there something ineffable about physical reality that makes it more real than virtual reality? Although this starts to enter the realm of metaphysics, is there a ghost in the machine? Many believe in the universal concept called the chi, or in Japan, the ki, and in India, prana, which is a life force that flows through all things. These words also mean breath. And while much of Western research dismisses the concept of the chi as Asian mysticism, this life force historically has many names in multiple cultures, such as Ruach in Hebrew and Judaism, Mana in Polynesian, Pneuma in Greek and Christianity, Ruh in Arabic and Sufi Islam, Orenda in Amerindian, and in Latin, the anima. If this life force is real, then is reality defined by this life force? And if so, will virtual reality ever be able to encapsulate this life force? Perhaps due to Japanese culture and the Shinto faith, where it is possible for inanimate objects to possess kami, or gods, there is a greater willingness to believe in the reality of animated characters like Hatsune Miku. In the words of Rafal Zaborowski, from his chapter in the Oxford Handbook of Music and Virtuality 2016, he says, Hatsune Miku is real because the audiences expect her to be. The audiences make her real because she sings about things that matter to them. She is real because she represents a bottom-up collective model where access and participation are potentially unlimited. Such questions obviously tread into the territory of philosophy, metaphysics, and social anthropology, as Japanese culture and belief makes it much easier to believe in the reality of the virtual world. But even if we assumed a purely materialist understanding of the world, we still run into the question of identity. Like the British virtual band Gorillaz, Kizuna Ai is a virtual YouTuber or VTuber and singer who belongs in the category of the hyperreal. Hyperreality is a term used by cultural theorists and artists to denote a form of experience in which the real and virtual becomes indistinguishable. Rambaran regards virtual performance as belonging to the third order of Jean Baudrillard's theory of the orders of simulacra. The third order is a simulation in which the original can no longer be detected. The hyperreal is regarded as more real than real, while also being neither real nor unreal. Yet Kizuna Ai has a voice actor called Nozomi Kasuga, and when that voice was changed, there was an uproar. So is Kizuna Ai a persona of Nozomi Kasuga? In terms of identity, who is real? Kizuna or Nozomi? Are these actually personas or masks that the real singer wears? Is there a point when the stage persona becomes hyperreal or more real than the human singer, to the point that the voice can be replaced while the character remains intact? Is reality therefore something that cannot be defined too narrowly? Does reality encompass both the pre-existing and the created character? Obviously, it is impossible to answer these questions in the time I have today, but perhaps in future research, these questions can be addressed. Thank you.